Hi everybody, welcome back to RSAC Conference 2025. My name is Dave Vellante. John Furrier is also here. This is day one. We've also got some action going on tonight with the NYSE over at the Embarcadero, theCUBE After Dark, so you can check that out. Alex Hesterberg is here. He's the CEO of Superna IO. He's joined by Andrew MacKay, who's the CTO and CSO, Chief Strategy Officer, is that right? Okay, yeah. Gentlemen, welcome. Superna, new to me. Tell me about the company.
Yeah, so it's, we like to think about it as one of the best kept secrets in cybersecurity. Company's actually been around about 14 years. Started its partnership with EMC and Dell, delivering real-time data security, meaning detection of actual events, extortions, ransomware, on production data, with the ability to then lock out the actual attack in real time. And that process, that product has been around for quite some time now.
I remember this. I remember that, but I don't think they announced, they disclosed that it was Superna back then. But I remember that lockdown feature that they had at EMC. Yes, okay. Yes. Ringing a bell.
So that was originally, that was Superna. Superna has now, over the course of the last several years, launched into the ecosystem of technology partners in cybersecurity. So when we were seeing events take place in real time at the actual data layer and then actioning against those events, we would then take all the forensics of those attacks and now we deliver them natively into CrowdStrike's Next-Gen SIEM or SentinelOne, or even ServiceNow for ticketing and for automation of all the different things the security team can do. And now, over the course of the last couple of years, we've also invested in what we're going to refer to as the data attack surface management, which Andrew can go into in depth.
So you guys have always solved data problems. There are those who would say security is a data problem. Is that how you think about it?
We looked at security from the view of your data. So when you work backwards from your data and look out, you see hosts, you see users, and so we looked at security a totally different way because we live in the unstructured world. And so when we did that, we came up with unique ways to map out your attack surface. We can use things like classification and understand the risk to your data because we're classifying your data. We can see permissions. We found that when we did that, we're able to map out risk vulnerabilities and exposures that matter because it's your data versus a host that doesn't access data.
If you think about it, every single piece of security technology has always been rooted more in network and application and identity access management and firewalls and intrusion detection, but not the data, not your actual precious endpoint that's holding your production data. That was just always seen as something you always had to back up. And if an attack made its way there, you were instantly in this recovery motion. What we end up bringing to the table here is the tenets of security, the instantaneousness of prevention and locking out and denying access, and we apply it to the storage layer. And by the way of our integrations, we now make the storage layer and attacks there and what we stop a part of the incident response automation process. So security teams don't need to learn about data and operating systems on a storage platform, and the storage teams don't need to learn anything about automated response for quarantining a host or kicking a host off the network. So in this way, we kind of bridge the gap between the security world and the data world.
So, you guys have some really interesting claims that caught my eye. You have a product called Ransomware Defender, is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And you talk about sub-second attack containment at very large scale, like petabyte. Scale, which is kind of the AI world that we live in now. Yeah. So my question is like, what kind of telemetry and are you capturing? How are you doing this?
We're doing this. So all storage systems have an audit log. The audit log records the changes to the data. The changes to the data are new data, modifying data, deleting data. We're listening to the changes of your data. And so that's a continuous threat evaluation where we're listening to the logging of the audit systems, and by doing that we can actually literally see business data being modified, created in real time, and when we do that, we're doing real-time analytics, and we're now able to see patterns in the user activity. So if I could see your account is renaming a lot of data for some reason, and you don't normally do that, we see that in real time because we're listening to the business data as it's being created.
Go ahead, please.
And why this is important now, couple things. Traditional security technologies that we've all depended on for a very long time have traditionally ignored the data layer. The story at the data layer for security has been backup and recovery. Make a snapshot and recover. What we found is that over the course of time, infiltrations, exfiltrations, ransomware attacks can sometimes make their way in very quietly to the point where they're not even detected. We see and detect those things, so we're actually preventing any kind of spread.
So the reason why that's important too, because I'm a firm believer in cyber resilience and air gaps, and great, because you got to be able to recover, but as you know, what attackers are doing, they're exfiltrating data, they're not holding, they're just keeping the data, they have your data, and then you get the ransom note, and you say, ha, I can recover. They say, ha, I'm going to release all this data, and you're going to be screwed. And
that was one of the biggest topics at the Gartner conference in Vegas last year, at the end of last year. The reason why this is particularly important now is because that's been seen as a vulnerability, as a gap, not having security wrapped around your actual data layer. The extortion thing is really important to look at, and I'll talk about that in a second. But 2 years ago, Julia Palmer, who owns the Magic Quadrant for file and object, she actually created a new category called Cyberstorage. And she was looking for technologies that were able to detect attacks on the actual storage layer, on the production data layer. And she did this because she was meeting with all these customers who were ending up in the Wall Street Journal or the Financial Times with some kind of breach or some kind of an attack. And the natural line of questioning is, what are you doing? What are you doing to protect your data? And the answers were all eerily similar. I've got intrusion detection and firewall and antivirus, and I've got backups, and I got snapshots, and I got 4 vendors for everything. Okay. Then why am I reading about you in the Wall Street Journal?
And it makes for a better Magic Quadrant than storage arrays. Because you remember what happened to storage arrays? Everybody went into the upper right because it was just became an oligopoly. You know?
I spent some time in that world.
You know what I'm talking about. So wow, that's a very, what's this analyst's name? Is very clever.
Julia Palmer. P-A-L-M-E-R.
Very clever.
She's been the Magic Quadrant owner for File and Object for about a decade now.
Give her props. Well, you know, it's interesting how this market shifts. Obviously, I come from the data world as well. And then you saw like with Dippel's company, Rubrik.
Yeah.
Rubrik became basically declared, okay, we're a cybersecurity company, and they got this great valuation, and you know, they're all over this place. So it's really an interest, and a lot of traditional vendors would say, well, no, that's not our play, but now everybody's leaning in to this space. It's like, this is the gift that keeps on giving. It's kind of terrible to say that, but chaos is, you know, great for criminals, but it's also great for the vendor community, and it's just like, this is a never-ending problem. So, help me understand your relationship with Dell. You're going to be at Dell Tech World.
Yep.
You guys, I think, are coming on theCUBE at Dell Tech World,
which
is amazing.
Yeah.
Probably, I'm guessing Monday night, which is our opening night. Maybe not, I don't know, we'll see. We got a great relationship with Dell. They put us right in the middle of the action. They build a wonderful set. All the execs come on, the customers, the partners, other analysts, it's phenomenal. So are you inside of like products like PowerScale, or how does that all work?
Yeah, so I'll let Andrew double click on a couple of these things, but we launched with PowerScale, we launched with ECS, which is now going to be called ObjectScale.
Yeah.
We'll soon be launching support for PowerStore as well. And from a Dell perspective, they're an incredible partner of ours, and we've been selling with them and through them for many years. We'll be launching our OEM with them shortly. But one of the things we heard from our customers as well is they don't have just one storage vendor. They usually have many. Some of them have partial cloud, different vendors on-prem. So one of the first things we did was to start working with different enterprise storage platforms to be able to accommodate for customers that were invested in Dell, but maybe they were also invested in VAST, or in Cumulo, or in Pure Storage, or Hitachi, or AWS. And so we had built these relationships and these integrations to be able to cover data no matter where it was, and then be able to integrate into any of the SIM, SOAR, XDR, endpoint technologies that their security teams have already invested in and already been trained on.
So you got CloudANGLE as well.
Yes.
So it's hybrid.
Yes.
All right, so you're Switzerland of this space, but you got close relationship with Dell, but you can accommodate the heterogeneity that exists in the world. How much of a technical challenge is that for you guys?
Well, unfortunately for the storage world, there's no common logging format. Everyone does their own thing, so some of the work is adapting our technology to each of the devices because they all have a different logging format. But we've been at this for many years. We're many years into this, and so as we add new vendors, it's quicker and quicker and quicker. And so at this point, we probably cover, I don't know, 80% of the unstructured data vendors in the market today. So most of our customers are multi-vendor, and occasionally vendors switch. Someone goes in and wants to replace their storage. So we allow customers to migrate that licensing around, and we can protect their data basically wherever it lives.
You're kind of the bridge between the storage admin role and the SecOps role.
Yes, good
and
way
you
to
were sort of referring to that a little bit earlier, I think, and just in terms of the storage guys don't have to worry about security, the security guys don't have to worry about storage, but when stuff happens, things go wrong, bombs are dropping, people have to collaborate.
Yes.
Are you a catalyst for that collaboration? What have you seen? Do you have any examples of customers that have sort of worked together and brought those two worlds together? What are your perspectives there?
Yeah, so it's not just the catalyst, it's kind of the mission. We call it the data to security gap. And more often than not, if you go talk to a CISO today, the Gartner survey that came out at the end of last year, they were asked to rate what they consider to be the most important responsibilities of their job and where they would rate their effectiveness, or their ability to go deliver. And the two areas that popped up with the biggest gap were data security and the ability to respond to an incident at the time of an event. So we took those two things head on, and we brought the security of we brought the data layer into the security world, into incident response, into the automation, and we brought all the responsibilities that the storage teams could do, kept them where they were. So we are never asking a storage team to learn about security workflows. We're never asking security teams to learn about storage workflows. But at the time of an event, the security team is fully outfitted with all the forensics of an attack, so they can go execute the workflows that they've been trained on. The storage team has everything they need to be able to respond to an event as well, but nobody needs to learn about each other's technologies. The security team stays in their SentinelOne or their CrowdStrike or their Palo Alto, and the storage team stays within their Dell, within their Pure, within their Hitachi world.
What I'm looking for, we just did a survey with our partner ETR, they did the survey, they're our partner, and they were asking the CISO what other areas, the SecOps team, what other areas of responsibility they had. And I'm trolling through it, and I was shocked at how many different areas they touched. It was IT, it was parts of the business, it was data platforms,
compliance,
governance.
Yes.
I mean, it was
supply chain.
It was so many questions here. Yeah, there was supply chain. It was really quite amazing how many pieces they touched, and the application piece of it. And I was just struck. IT infrastructure, business continuity, privacy, data backup, data management, on and on, the supply chain. And so, if I understand it correctly, you guys are sort of helping them not have to worry about being experts in all those other businesses.
Correct.
You guys are taking care of that as the automation layer, if you will.
We looked at the mandate of a CISO's incident response plan, and it's basically to protect the digital assets of the corporation, right? That's their mandate.
Yep.
But strangely, all the tools and technology that they invest to do that, none of them actually touch data. Endpoint protection doesn't actually touch the storage device, doesn't actually create snapshots on the storage device. So we looked at what actions would a security team appreciate in order to actually take actions towards protecting data. So we looked at things like creating snapshots. We gave that power to the security team. If they believe the data is under threat, I probably want to snapshot that data because I'm the first line of defense. I see the threat coming into the corporation because I've got my dashboards, my SIM, my SOAR. How can I take an action that'll protect my data as opposed to the attack happens and they're powerless because they don't have the ability to run a little playbook or something. So we gave them snapshotting, we gave them user lockout, we gave them capabilities that just don't exist in the incident response world, which was an odd thing because it is the mandate of the security team, so to protect the digital assets of the corporation. So we've empowered them.
And you brought up something, I wanted to talk about extortion. So the crime of stealing the data, right, and just extorting it, and now I have it as an external bad actor. If you don't see that attack, if you don't see that nefarious behavior, whether it's internal or external, once the data's gone, it's gone. It's not about having a backup or having a snapshot to recover from. your data is now outside of your four walls. Your risk posture is far greater than if you didn't have a backup of it. So seeing that attack, seeing that infil and exfiltration, seeing that nefarious behavior and being able to detect it and stop it at the data layer, and then invoke the security protocols to be able to do quarantining and host lockdown, these are the things we automate.
Yeah, so backup's one thing, recovery is another thing, stopping exfiltration is really the thing that you're trying to solve. And so you've got to do this at runtime. I mean, essentially in near real time, right? Because you hear, everybody has the stats on the compression time in terms of exfiltration. It's down
from the beginning to the actual incident is getting shorter and shorter.
It's like minutes now, right?
That's right.
It's like, so you've got to do this at runtime, don't you?
So one of the most underused features of storage is snapshotting. Right. So backups means you did something wrong, which means you didn't leverage the technology you already own. So we leverage the technology that everybody owns already as a way to recover. So we call it recovering data in place. We don't need backups because the snapshots contain versions of the data. As long as you know which version is the good version, you don't need a backup. So our solution's able to recover data without backup because we're using the snapshotting that's existing in the storage, and we generate more snapshots during an attack, and we're tracking all user activity, so we have this giant map. We can navigate it, and we can pull out your good data and restore it in seconds from the primary storage.
And your snapshot granularity is so tight that the amount of data that they could exfiltrate would be so tiny? Or
that would be more of a ransomware scenario, where they're modifying data.
Right.
But the exfiltration one is an interesting one. When data gets exfiltrated, it's just a data read. So if we know who reads data, that's good. If you start reading too much data, we know that's not normal for you. So the first place to go protect a data exfiltration, guess where? It's your data. It's going to tell you who's reading and who shouldn't be reading right now. It's Saturday. Why are you reading a terabyte of data on Saturday? That's the layer that we listen to, so we can see those types of subtle behaviors.
So you shut that down, essentially. The system shuts that down.
We could take it all the way from an alert saying, this looks a little strange. Potentially, it looks like Julie or it looks like Mike coming in. They're credentialed. It's just strange behavior. Maybe we want to flag on it. Maybe we don't want to lock them out. But then if we determine they're starting to delete or they're hitting a certain threshold that the security team says, no. If they're doing something strange and then these other things occur, we can issue a lockout denying them access, not just to the array that they're touching, any storage under our management. So we essentially prevent them from doing any future damage. Then, within the CrowdStrike or ServiceNow or SentinelOne or Palo Alto Cortex interface, they will see the forensics of the event, the who, the what, the when, the path, the share, the host, the IP, what exactly occurred, and then they can go execute their workflows to go quarantine the host or conduct an investigation. And all of that stays within their own tool sets.
It's the entire root cause of the incident is delivered to the incident response team without any additional questions they need to ask. It's this IP, it's this user, it's this data.
And the degree of automation that they choose to implement is up to them.
Correct.
Right? That's not your choice. What are you seeing in that regard in terms of willingness? I remember John Olsik just wrote a piece, he said he remembers back in 2000, whatever it was, Gartner declared the end of alerts with real-time incident response and IDR, whatever it was. It never happened.
No.
Because automation is a scary thing to people. Is that changing with this greater affinity to
I would suggest that the conversations go like this every time. You talk to the security team and you ask them some basic questions, like what actions do you take in your incident response that might actually recover data or protect data or prevent a user from destroying data? And they said, I don't have the ability to do that. And then we explain what we do, and they say, I didn't know that was possible. And the very next question, after they hear what we do, is, do you integrate with? And then they list off all the vendors that are here for us to integrate with. So they immediately see the value, they know it's a gap in their ability to respond, and what they want is integration, integration, integration. That's the #1 requirement because incident response doesn't work without integrations.
Yeah. We started seeing it in sales cycles when we were going shoulder to shoulder with our teammates in the field, our brethren and sisterin on the side of the storage world. At these storage meetings, security teams start to show up. And they go, what do you have that's going to be protecting this data against ransomware? What do you have that's going to give me audit and forensics about who's touching what? And the storage teams are not used to answering those questions, so the security teams show up. And we now outfit those teams with all the answers that they need according to the NIST framework. We actually design most of the capabilities of what we do against the NIST framework, so that they would look at it and go, oh, you're speaking my love language. I know exactly what it is you do. And one of the things we're really excited about, so what we talked about a lot today were endpoint, and XDR, and SIMs and SOAR integrations, and again, a lot of the companies here are integration partners. But where we're taking this next, I'm going to hand it to Andrew, because what we've been able to start doing is, everything we just talked about was, I'll call it right of boom. So the boom happened and now you're trying to recover, or trying to reduce the blast radius. Where we're going next is left of boom with partners like Tenable and Armis.
Okay, yeah.
7, yeah. So everyone struggles with patch management. It's not a super sexy topic, but the reality is we're not going to patch your way out of the problem, right? We can't patch fast enough. So, many claims about prioritization being the #1 requirement in order to reduce your risk. And again, we looked at this from the lens of data. Well, why would I patch a machine? Well, I'm worried it gets compromised. Why am I concerned about that? Well, I'm concerned that my data will get breached. Oh, so your real concern is data. So if we work backwards from the data and said, well, let's take a look at what kind of data. Is it PHI data? Does it have PCI, a credit card? Let's look at what's in the data. Let's look at the permissions to the data. Let's look at the protection level of the data. Let's look at the user behavior of that data and put it into an AI model, because why not? And what do we get? We get a prioritized list of machines that are interacting with your data that we believe should be the #1 thing to remediate, because a breach of these machines would result in a breach of this data set. So when you work backwards, it turns out the list of things to patch is tiny. It's really, really small. Today the problem is, oh, look at all the machines I have to patch. I got to scan them every week, and I got all the vulnerabilities, and I got to sort them. No, look at your data, look at the risk, and then see what hosts are touching your data.
Wow. They're rolling into the keynotes. Make the last point, because we got to jump.
We call this, we're just launching this week at RSA. We call this data attack surface management. I guess you could say we're launching it here on theCUBE.
Oh, nice.
You're the first to know.
Wow. Data attack surface management.
The data attack surface management.
New product category?
We
Get
think
the
so.
Gartner guys on that. Talk to our research team at theCUBE Research. We'd love to get briefed on that.
We'd love it too.
All right, good.
Yes.
Guys, thanks so much. We're looking forward to seeing you next month.
Yeah.
At Dell Tech World as well, and around the show this week. So thanks for coming on.
Appreciate the time.
Appreciate the support.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Okay, keep it right there. Dave Vellante for John Furrier, Jackie McGuire, and John Olsek. We'll be back right after this short break from RSAC 2025.